Miss Badu was on The Breakfast Club recently, and I absolutely loved her interview. She had bars. She had a word for us today, ladies, and I'm not sure if the interview was today or whatever the day was, but I happened to see it across my timeline today, where she was someone made a clip about having multiple baby daddies, and girl, that one definitely spoke to me. Having but one baby daddy, right? That one actually really spoke to me because it was it's very eye-opening. If you haven't seen the interview of Miss Erykah Badu on The Breakfast Club, then go and watch it. Go and watch it. I'm gonna have to go and watch it. I have not seen the whole thing yet, but that clip has me sold. I'm gonna have to go and watch it. So this is our reminder. We're gonna go and watch the interview. But anyway, so just speaking to some of the things that I heard in the clip, her speaking about having multiple baby daddies and being able to like sidestep or completely miss that labeling that other women will end up getting, the label of being, promiscuous, or being, irresponsible, or just any type of negative association of you as a woman, right? She managed to sidestep all of that, and it's very impressive. It's very eye-opening and enlightening and inspiring, right? Because I made the decision, honestly, to keep having all of my children with the same person because I did not want to be labeled that way. I did not want to be looked at a certain way, which was definitely going to be negative by having multiple baby fathers. As a Black woman, if I roll up anywhere with more than one baby daddy, it's already a bad look, especially as someone who was raised by the pastor's daughter.
Now, I just want to step in. I think as Black people, we always got to single out as a Black person, as a Black woman. Having multiple babies by multiple men is not a good look, period. And I think from what I'm hearing so far, what it sounds like is women trying to disregard the negative connotations associated with being a single mother. They want to dodge the outcomes of their choices, seems like. And only do you hear Black women, if we're going to talk about Black women, because we are Black women, this is what we hear from Black women. They're always trying to find solutions to eliminate the consequences associated with their actions. It's not just a Black thing. Any woman to be out here promiscuous, which a lot of women are, they're out here making babies with random men and not really having exclusive relationships or marriages. And you want to convince yourself that that's okay, to make yourself feel good and promote doing that as if it's okay, when we know that it's not. Too many statistics are out there showing that the kids are the ones who are directly affected negatively by this. So from what she's saying so far, and she chose to have her kids by one person. I don't know if she's married or not. It's sort of the same way at how they're diminishing marriage and the nuclear family, which we knew that benefited us back in the day. Because now it's like they're opting out of that, or they want to switch it around and make being a single mother a great thing when it's really not, when we have so many single mothers out here struggling and complaining and crying and depressed because it's so hard and they have no help. Why would we continuously try to push a narrative that we see is not working? That doesn't make any sense. So all I can see now, and I see this a lot of single mothers are justifying that behavior because they have no other options or they have no other choices. So they got to be okay with what they got or what they've created. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think, but let's continue.
Very, very heavily religious Christian family is a bad look. So I've already, this is my mind before my frontal lobe fully developed by like age 35. It took a while, y'all. Before that happened, my thought process was very different. I was thinking that, okay, I've already broken away from, the church and my upbringing there. I've already, disappointed, my indoctrination of, I should be married first. I've now had a child out of wedlock. So I determined, my brain was like, hey, what we're going to do is just have all of our children with the same man, knowing very well that man didn't even like me, right? That man didn't even like me. But I was determined that I was going to be the best woman, right? By doing the things that the culture would dictate as making me a good woman, right?
Well, I mean, and it shouldn't be about the culture. And I think this is where people make mistakes. You shouldn't be worried about the culture. You should be worried about what's best for you and the child. If you made a mistake, you had a child with a guy that you knew didn't like you. It wouldn't make sense to continuously make children with that particular man. Move on. And I will say this, I do think the church is honestly not the best for individuals. I think Christians and the church have kind of steered people in the wrong direction as well in many different ways. But I think it's up to you to determine what's best for you and what's best for your child. I think if you're religious and you believe the Bible and you believe what the Bible states, then you would do things that reflect that. Not necessarily the church and the people in it, because we know that the church people are hypocritical. Now that's just what it is. We know they're hypocritical. We know they tell you to do one thing and they do something else. So I wouldn't even follow that. I will give her that with the church, because the church, it's a whole nother game. That is not something you should follow, in my opinion. You got to use your own mind and your own common sense to know what's best for your child. If you made a child out of wedlock and that relationship was not good and it didn't work, move on. I would not suggest to any woman to go and keep having children with that person when you know that that's not a good fit, because what you're doing is you're further putting yourself in a situation that's going to be difficult for you and your kids, in my opinion. So what I would do is you learn from your mistakes, get counseling, because if she's saying her frontal lobe didn't develop fully until she was 30 something, well, that means that there's something missing there. But let's continue.
Sticking by a man and having all my kids with this person. So I did that and thinking that was going to have a better outcome. But honestly, what I found happens, ladies, is the more that we try to contort ourselves in a culture, the less our lives are going to be comfortable, the less our lives are going to be rewarding for us if we're contorting ourselves to fit into the culture. Now, if the culture fits you, enjoy it and be comfortable there. By all means, I'm not talking down on the culture, because our culture is very complicated. It's got levels to it. It's got a front and a back. It's got an A and a B side. Okay, our culture is wild. So,
but why is that though? Why is our culture so complicated? We got to think about that. Why is it you don't hear other races of people talking about how complicated their culture is? Why do you think our culture is so complicated? And of course, there are layers to it, but why do you think it's so complicated? Why? Because part of the reason is we have a lot of people who are operating the way they want to operate. You have the freedom of choice to do what you want, but you're doing things in your own way and it's proving to not work out. There's no solid foundation, to start with. Everybody is just kind of going with the culture. Oh, this is popular. We're, with the whole empowered thing to be 304s. There's empowerment in being a 304. Every time somebody pops up with a baby, oh my God, congratulations, this is so beautiful. But why is it's so critical and so confusing when it comes to our communities? And why is that? That's a deeper discussion, because it goes beyond what we're seeing. It's a mental conditioning. It's a programming that's within our community that tells us, oh, we don't need a husband. We don't need a man. We don't need marriage. Let's just have babies. We don't need a family structure. We don't need structure, period. We're going to go outside. We're going to do what we want to do, and nobody ain't going to say nothing about it. That's the type of attitude that we have in our communities. We're going to do what we want, and we're going to still be looked at as a queen. No judgment, no criticism, no nothing. We're going to sit around and we're going to be just however we want to be, no matter if it's good for us, our kids, and nobody can criticize us. Nobody better not say nothing, because we do what we want. This is how we move. We outside, and it's all good. But how is that working out? Let's continue.
That's another thing I wanted to speak to too. I'm all full of tangents. Is how Miss Badu managed to speak about culture, speak about our culture, speak about us, without putting down a single person, without talking down about a single solitary soul. Kudos. That is universal energy right there. That is universal energy right there. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Hopefully I didn't forget my line of thought. But the point was, we'll find ourselves either trying to contort to fit into culture if it doesn't fit us, and then we'll find ourselves having different types of physical or mental or spiritual ailments, because we're not living our best reality. We're not living our true selves, right? Now, being a child of, being raised initially in the church and all that type of stuff, a child of the pastor's daughter, right? I did my best to toe the lines, right? I stepped outside of the culture that I was raised in, the Christian culture, right? At least that level of it. I stepped outside of that, and so I thought that to try to, redeem myself would mean towing the lines of the culture. So basically remaining tethered to the fence post and just spinning in circles around it, not really ever developing myself further, not really ever getting anywhere in life, not getting any closer to my spiritual goals, my purpose, none of that, because I'm tethering myself to something that does not suit me, that does not fit me. And instead of towing this line and living in misery, I should have cut that cord. I should have just moved entirely away from the fence post and explored what life is for myself, instead of living based off of, even loosely based off of the dogma and indoctrination that I grew up with. Now, a lot of those things, of course, they were always meant with good intention, because we raise our children with good intentions. Most of us, right? The vast majority, right? So all of that was with good intention. I don't mean to say it like it was meant to hurt me in any type of way. Not by the people that were passing it down. Maybe by the ones who created the system in the first place, because who does a nuclear family benefit? Really, truly, capitalism and nothing else. I'm going to say it right loud. Nuclear families only benefit capitalism. They don't benefit the people. They really don't. Some people it fits for you, and for some people it doesn't. So again, we should not be contorting ourselves to fit into boxes that are not they're not even made for us.
Now, I will say, I think the nuclear family, when we talk about capitalism, and it's just my opinion, I think capitalism benefits single split families. You know, the powers that be benefit off of broken homes, if that makes sense. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do y'all agree or disagree? Because you have the mother over here who is making decisions. She can work, go get her PhD. She go get that. She's paying into the system. They're taxing her and they're taxing him. So now you have two separate people that you can tax. When you're together, it's one. So I don't agree that nobody benefits from the nuclear family. I think the children benefit from it. I think the husband and the wife benefit from it. I think everybody benefits when there's so many levels to it and so much that you benefit from by keeping your family together. It's ridiculous, because I don't think you benefit anything by being single mother. How do you benefit from that? So I would love to hear more stories of women talking about them finding their way, but it didn't mean becoming single mothers. It didn't mean becoming promiscuous. It meant that you actually found your path in a way that was beneficial to you, and your life is so much better. And now you're thriving, and you can tell your story, and it's something that we can all kind of listen to and make sense. But I never hear that. I always hear a whole story. It turns into a whole story. Oh, I was in the church and then I became a hoe. That's what we hear a lot of times. We don't hear, or now you're on the other end of things and it's not really looking good, but now you got to try to justify your happiness and your choices because you don't really feel good about that either. So it's like one extreme to the other. That's what I tend to see. And I know that's not everybody. So if it don't apply, let it fly. There are people who move like that, and then it's become confused, and they become tormented, and just not really knowing which direction to go. That's why I said we all are works in progress. We all need help. We all need some type of therapy. We need constructive criticism. And I think that is what's lacking. Far too often when you give sound advice or give your advice that's different from promoting the foolishness, people don't gravitate to that. People find that as bashing and putting them down. But you got to have some type of direction. You can't just go out here. This is why a lot of people are confused. You have no direction. You have no structure. You have anything. And I think when you've been raised with that and it's kind of rubbed you the wrong way, people tend to go quite opposite of that. And then you find yourself in another situation that, hey, that's not the best either. So where do you fit in? What do you do? And this is where you find a lot of women confused and depressed and angry and confused. They don't know which way to go. So I think that's where you got to get some help. You got to really talk to somebody. You got to start being real about your choices and the outcomes of them. And I think once again, a lot of women in our culture hate for you to give them any type of constructive criticism. They don't want to hear anything that goes outside of the choices that they've made, even though those choices did not yield them the best results. So listen, y'all, let me know what y'all think. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell to be notified when I upload new content. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.